The following program is suitable for general audience of any age.
Tonight, we discuss the latest updates relating to digital laws and artificial intelligence in Sri Lanka and across the globe. What are the key developments in the legal field in relation to technology? A very good evening and thank you for joining us on yet another episode of Law, Land and Liberty, where we bring to you key legal concepts and break it down for the layman. Now, tonight's topic is not something that we are strangers to here at Law, Land and Liberty, specifically relating to just how many updated segments we have run on it, and that's on artificial intelligence and personal data protection, as well as the updates with the digital laws when it comes to Sri Lanka's landscape. Now, the reason we're pulling this program further again is due to the fact that since the last time we have touched on this topic, there's been quite a few serious updates that have come about with the exponential development of AI and how it is involved in legal systems around the world as well. So to help us understand what exactly the environment looks like when it comes to technological advancements as well as data protection and AI intelligence, we have someone that is not a new face on the program. We're very glad to welcome back onto the show Dr. Sunil Abeyratne, attorney at law. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to come back to the show again to help us understand this topic. A bit of an introduction into Dr. Abeyratne. He is, of course, a PhD holder from University of Colombo and also is very notably the chairman of the Communication, Data Protection and Technology Committee of Law Asia, ICT Lawyers Guild of Sri Lanka, International Chamber of Agriculture founder and chairman of ICT Law Committee of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, as well as being a member of the Law Commission of Sri Lanka, among many others. Safe to say we are in very good hands when it comes to understanding the technological and legal implications of what AI is doing in the current sphere. Before we go into the topic, here's how we're going to be approaching it. First, we'll be getting into a little bit of a touch-up, a bit of a recap, most like, on what exactly the laws look like, the digital laws in Sri Lanka. Next, we'll be getting into the personal data protection and online safety aspects, especially considering AI in Sri Lanka's legal system and Sri Lanka's online environment. And finally, we'll be talking about what we can expect to see as developments in the country, reflecting upon global developments that we have seen with AI legislature as well.
Hello, my name is Vicky Fernando and I am an advanced level student. My question is on the fundamentals. What are the key legislature governing technology in Sri Lanka? Thank you.
All right, well, without any further ado, let's get right into this discussion. Doctor, thank you once again for your time. Now, before we get into the technical updates that we have seen in this sphere, I think it's important for us to get a little bit of a recap into what exactly we are going to be breaching as a topic here. Can you help us understand specifically about the digital laws that are existent in Sri Lanka and currently functioning? How exactly we have seen changes over the past few months or years?
The digital era is developing. It's the latest development. We can see the scientists found these digital platforms finally that we are talking about digital era today. As far as the behavior in cyberspace and as far as digital economy, digital governance are concerned, role play of law is very important because when you take any field or any mechanism, legal impact on this is very important to maintain a just society. So considering this, we can say, if you ask a question, what is digital law? Of course, we have to define what is digital law. It may be the legal framework, maybe regulation, practices that involves in governing digital law or the internet. This is a simple definition I can give for digital law. Everyone knows what is digital impact on the society and what is contents and digits and everything. But when you take digital law, sometimes you may be surprised what is that law behind digital era.
Exactly. And I think maybe just for our viewers to get a little bit more clarity as well, Doctor, it can be important for us to maybe walk through a few of the key pieces of legislature we have that govern the digital space in Sri Lanka specifically. If you could help us look into those.
And rather starting from Evidence Special Provisions Act number 14 of 1995, we started to entering into this digital era, even without our knowledge perhaps. Then we introduced Electronic Transactions Act following UNCITRAL model law on electronic commerce and electronic signatures in 2006. Later, we brought an amendment also to this Electronic Transactions Act by Act number 70 of 2025. Then our lawmakers introduced Computer Crime Act in 2007. Then we can see Data Protection Act number 9 of 2022 that brought an amendment last year. And in addition to that, we can say very controversial Online Safety Act and Act number 9 of 2024. In addition to that, we can see some provisions under the Intellectual Property Act, considering the copyright ownership and patent rights and domain name rights, semiconductor chip rights, we call this as topography, and unfair trade practices in cyberspace. We can see the following international treaties, especially WIPO rules and TRIPS agreements. Our legislature clearly introduced international standard provisions to our Intellectual Property Act in 2003. So as far as the development of digital world and relevant to Sri Lanka is concerned, so these are the main piece of legislation we can identify in our country.
Yes, a very important point, as you mentioned as well, Dr. Where where Sri Lanka is expecting to stay on international standards in relating to the development of technology as well as maintaining proper best practices when it comes to the digital era. I want to ask you, before we go into the specifics relating to that specific area, which is on artificial intelligence and how it has impacted currently existing laws, a small comment from you relating to the Online Safety Act. Now, with its enactment, what are the special powers and aims for the specific legislature? What does it grant as opposed to the already pre-existing legislature that could govern behavior on the online space?
Anuradhi, as far as the development of computers and networks concerned, we can identify 3 eras under this mission. Prior to the computer or network era, so there also we can find out various criminal activities happen using hardware and various other instruments. Then at the initial stages, we used computer as a tool for word processing. We didn't involve the internet much. Then internet became very popular. So considering this development, now we can see that lots of activities taking place in cyberspace. Now, as far as cyberspace concerned, we can't see any territorial jurisdictions. Countries, we have geographically territorial jurisdiction. In cyberspace, you can find them. On the other hand, we must identify the behavior and the nature of this electromagnetic field, the cyberspace. So considering that, of course, we must seriously consider how to reshape legal provisions, policies, practices to apply and to deal with certain issues relevant to this era. So we can see, especially take example, we introduced a Computer Crime Act in 2007. That is a period we used computers. We didn't use much in internet or network. We used computers as word processors. So then we discussed what is the computer-generated evidence. When you look at the Evidence Special Provisions Act introduced in 1995, Section 5 clearly explains computer-generated evidence. But when you look at the behavior in cyberspace, that you have to modify these versions. So that is why that we needed, following other international standard, we also wanted to introduce some legal provisions to deal with some activities taken place in cyberspace. So now, as far as criminal justice mechanism is concerned, this is a piece of legislation we introduced to the country, Online Safety Act. When you take Online Safety Act, we can see some pros and cons. I think this is why I say it's a very controversial piece of legislation. Some say some provisions are there, it violates freedom of expression. The reason is sometimes you have to go for some interpretation, because there are sometimes we can see some vague interpretations given. And sometimes one can interpret provisions, some offences, they are specified under this act in favor of another party. So these are the matters we have to clarify in future. But anyway, when you take the security of people in the world, we must balance this situation, not only suspects, but in the meantime, we have to think about the protection of victims as well. So when you take both parties and special stakeholders, it's a high time to introduce this type of piece of legislation. Of course, there's no doubt about that. But only thing is we have to go for more clarity on these certain provisions. That is number one. You can't interpret certain provisions ad hoc basis. There must be clear definition. Otherwise, Anuradhi, what happens is sometimes due to fear, people will not come out with their that free expression. So that can be a serious threat to a democratic society. When there is no proper freedom of speech expression, it will be a hit to a democratic society. So these are the matters we have to resolve in future. So we can get some examples from other countries, how European countries apply this type of legislation successfully without having an issue. And what are the judgments delivered by courts to enrich this type of piece of legislation. But getting these examples from other countries, United States, even in Australia from other end, so we can develop this law. But it doesn't mean that we don't need to have online safety act, we must have that. So this is what at the moment number of not only the present government, the previous government also struggling to settle online safety act. Still they are struggling. But anyway, that my personal feeling is it's high time to, without any delay, it's high time to take examples from other countries and introduce and give some powers to these provisions under this act as soon as possible.
Yes, that's a very important point that you mentioned as well, the fact that we can take advantage, examples from the experiences dealt with from other countries, foreign countries as well. I want to get to that specific area a little bit later in our discussion, exactly understanding how foreign nations have dealt with the development of AI and how to incorporate better legal systems around this technology. But a very crucial area I want to speak about, Doctor, is apart from the Online Safety Act, the Personal Data Protection Act is also enacted in Sri Lanka. Do you believe that the currently existing legislation for personal data protection is adequate, and also in comparison to how the Online Safety Act was received, there was quite a different approach with the Personal Data Protection Act. What are your thoughts on that?
And rather, this is a recent trend in the world. Now, when you take, especially in the European Union, they have gone long journey. They have started from a Personal Data Protection Directive. Then, considering the behavior in cyberspace, they introduced E-Privacy Act or E-Privacy Directive. After applying some provisions under E-Privacy Directive, following the E-Privacy Directive, the jurisdiction introduced their E-Privacy Act. They realized it's also provisions are not enough. Then what they did was that they introduced Personal Data Protection Directive. We call this as GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. There are 7 principles there. Last time also we discussed these 7 principles. I will explain you what are these 7 principles. If a person collects another sensitive data or personal data, you and I, Anuradhi, we have our own personal data. Anyone can identify us easily, that is our personal data. So if a person collect our personal data for purpose of processing. Processing means we have given a broad definition for that, not only in Sri Lanka, even in European Union, they have given a very broad definition, collection, deletion, erasure, everything comes under that. Then it's a duty of the data controller or data collector or the processor who collect data for the data controller that they must inform the reason to collect this personal data. Without informing, they can't just collect. Only whistleblowers can collect for criminal investigations, otherwise you can't. Then after, when they collect this data, they can't exceed their limit. Only we call this as purpose limitation. Only for the purpose only they can collect that. There are some instances, even by mistake or sometimes you may collect additional data. Then it is the duty of the data collector to return this data. Or they must inform that to the data subject. You and I, we are subjects. Then we call this a storage limitation. Storage limitation sense, Anuradhi, if we enter into various agreements, during that agreement, to carry the terms and conditions of this contract, sometimes the data collector has to collect our personal data. When that period of contract is over, it's a duty of the data collector to return our personal data collected during that contract period. Then after collecting this personal data, it's a prime duty of the data collector to give maximum security for that. So they can't say, look, what can we do? The hacker came and attacked my database without giving proper security. This is another area. Then you can't, after collecting personal data, you can't tarnish the good image of the data subject. Then that we can see data subject at any time the data subject can withdraw the consent given earlier to collect this data. Likewise, there are 7 principles. Now, this is what GDPR says. When we draft our Personal Data Protection Act number 9 of 2022, you can see when you go through these provisions very carefully, we have hired these 7 principles from European Union to our country. The reason is our export market is in European Union countries. When we send our, say, especially the garment industry, our tea market, that you must collect data, personal data of the people who are living in those countries. Those countries will not send their personal data of their citizens to country like us earlier, since we didn't have proper data protection laws. They didn't want to send their personal data to country like Sri Lanka. So as a result, we couldn't carry proper research. And day by day, we lost our international market. If we really want to capture the international market, especially in European market, we had to improve our personal data protection laws in the country. So as a result, the lawmakers, what they did was, they just hired these 7 principles from European Union and drafted our Data Protection Act, Personal Data Protection Act. It doesn't mean that this is one of the best pieces of legislation. When you look at data protection laws available in New Zealand, Hong Kong, still that they maintain the highest standards. Even they introduced their data protection laws prior to GDPR. So this is the situation internationally. As far as the development of technology is concerned, Anuradhi, because we can't live as an isolated country, because we have to, every time we have to interact with the foreign market. So data protection is very important. In future, all this private or public sector must carefully adhere to all these provisions under this Personal Data Protection Act, because violation can be lots of consequences. Once again, we can see some administrative offences involved in this data protection law. Today, the situation in European Union is considering the development of artificial intelligence. They had reshaped their 7 principles under personal data protection regulation. Now, take one example. If the data collector use AI tool or AI device to collect personal data of a person, it's a duty of the data collector or the processor to inform that to the data subject. Then the data subject is well aware then what the mechanism to collect his or her own personal data. Then sometimes they will go for risk. So we call this, there's a concept called voluntary non-fit injuria. Voluntarily, if you surrendered your rights, that is not an offense. Now they are knowing that the fact that data collector is collecting data using AI tool, then that data subject provide his or her personal data with a risk. That is up to the data subject. So these are some development we can see under European law. But anyway, that today the situation is European Union also realized after introducing AI Act, they started to lose their international market due to these rigid laws. Now they are deviating from some provisions under AI Act. But you can see that there are lots of development involved in as far as personal data protection laws are concerned. But Sri Lanka is still struggling to settle the basic personal data protection law. So this is the situation, without having any delay, without going for any delay, because the unbearable delay to the country, we have to settle provisions under this act and start the implementation parts of Data Protection Act.
Yes. The point where you mentioned relating to European Union also having to change up their laws due to whatever differences, especially considering artificial intelligence and data protection, is something I want to get into maybe towards the latter part of our discussion. And also there's this conversation relating to cybersecurity and exactly what kind of context that is in Sri Lanka as well. But before we go into any of those specifics, we do have to take a short commercial break. You're watching Law, Land and Liberty here on Other Derana News Channel. We'll be right back after this. Please stay tuned.
Hello, my name is Amoth Ratnayaka. a third year undergraduate at Faculty of Law, General Sir John Kotalawala Defence University. So my question is, on the current context, how have laws relating to AI evolved recently? Thank you.
Welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty here on Other Than a News channel. We're in conversation with Dr. Sunil Abeyratne, attorney at law. Doctor, thank you so much for the previous segment. I believe when it comes to digital laws and its updates, we were able to lay quite a foundation down relating to the current status quo. But while we just got done speaking about the Personal Data Protection Act and also how it has been contrasted with the international legislation that are existing in the same field, there is a question that arises, as you mentioned previously as well. There are lapses and gaps in the legislature when it comes to Sri Lanka's context because there's a bit of a delay. When it comes to the cybersecurity aspect, specifically cybercrime as well, in Sri Lanka's digital space, fraud and other technological related offences, how are the protections currently existing in Sri Lanka measuring up to the crimes or maybe injustices that we can see when it comes to the digital field? Do you believe that it is an airtight piece of legislation that is helping us protect individuals on the internet, or do you believe that there are lapses that need to be direly addressed?
Considering the development of criminal justice mechanism, up to a certain extent, yeah, I'm happy as a citizen of this country. But we can't, 100% we can't satisfy. I will explain you the reason. Starting from Computer Crime Act, we can see that is the first piece of legislation where we introduced as far as offences relating to computers and network concerned, hacking, cracking or modification. These are the basic offences we identified and introduced to our system following Computer Misuse Act 1990 in the United Kingdom. In addition to these three main offences, we can see another 7 main offences: illegal uploading, downloading, and interference of traffic data, using device tools to carry one of these offences, and passing of some secret data, that means maybe password or logon ID files to third party without getting permission of the owner. So likewise, there are other offences also introduced under this act. We can see up to a certain extent the cybersecurity is provided through this Computer Crime Act. So then, in addition to this act, we can see that there are other supportive piece of legislation also there. Now take example, Electronic Transactions Act. Now Electronic Transactions Act, when you take section 7 of Electronic Transactions Act, explain what is digital signature and electronic authentication. Because as far as cybersecurity concerned, is that authentication is very important. What is authentication? When you take hard copies, we know that maybe the manual signature or thumb impression or whatever it is, those days, this is what we identify, that authentication. Now, when you come to digital world, applying algorithms, a mathematical formula, we create some digital signatures. The 100% accuracy is there. And today we have developed this mechanism, Face ID, or that your eye effect and voice IDs. Likewise, there are lots of developments we can see. Through this, we can see that we can provide some high security for your own digital contents in your device or in maybe in cloud or wherever it is. That depends on the mechanism you use. So this is the second piece of legislation we can find. Then, what is the level of security you can provide under Electronic Transactions Act for your electronic transaction? That depend on the nature and all the circumstances of your transactions. Sometimes it may be pressing of your entering key, maybe your cybersecurity. But in the meantime, if you are carrying some very serious transactions, this cannot be sufficient authentication. Then you have to apply some digital signature. Then when you come to other acts, especially Online Safety Act, we can find lots of provisions under Online Safety Act. Then in addition to that, we can see consumer protection laws are available in Sri Lanka, especially as far as distance selling mechanisms concerned. It's very important as far as online transactions concerned to protect consumer in the world. So we can see that some provisions we have introduced following some international rules and regulations. So in addition to these three provisions, we can see now is at the draft stage Cybersecurity Act bill at the moment. Now, when you take the Cybersecurity bill, especially considering the development of activities in cyberspace, not only in Sri Lanka, other countries also have introduced various cybersecurity mechanisms in that. So, this is the high time to introduce these provisions to Sri Lanka as well. The reason is, as I explained to you earlier, Anuradha, we are using all these international standard devices here. We use the internet. The internet is common to all countries in the world. So, these are the basic piece of legislation. In addition to that, we can see Telecommunication Act and TRCSL of a controlling mechanism is there. So, this is also important as far as cybersecurity is concerned. Because when you take these pieces of legislation, we can see at the moment, up to certain extent, we are satisfied. That I said, up to certain extent, I am satisfied. Yes, we have brought some provisions to our country, following other countries. But anyway, we have to go a long journey. Because day by day, technology is developing.
Yes.
Then we have to apply new cyber security, technology-wise or through legal provisions. We have to improve both sides. So then only we can consider higher standards of cyber security.
Yes, and that's a key point that you mentioned as well, Doctor, relating to the fact that with the constant evolution of technology as well, legally we need to have safeguards and safety nets in order to ensure that proper regulation occurs. And as you very rightly mentioned previously as well, well, this is a question of curiosity. With artificial intelligence coming in, which is the latest piece of technology that is rapidly evolving and involving itself within each feature of the digital landscape that we interact with as citizens of this country and also as a human on planet Earth, there is no way for us to actually avoid artificial intelligence. It's everywhere, it's all around us. But how exactly has artificial intelligence moved to impact the criminal justice system in Sri Lanka and also globally? What are the implications we're seeing of artificial intelligence upon legal systems?
Anuradha, when you look at the regulation part of artificial intelligence, we can see it's a standalone legal domain. I have explained you the number of pieces of legislation at the moment in operation in Sri Lanka. When you extract some provisions, we can see those provisions we can apply for artificial intelligence as well. But the question arises whether these provisions are enough to deal with AI issue. First of all, we must understand what is AI. The AI means it's that device or tool behaving like our neuron cells, like our human brain. It takes its own decisions, independent sometimes. If the particular device acts on our command, according to our command, then it is not AI. It's big data. AI means like human brain. This particular device is behaving independently. That's why some scientists say that we have not reached that era yet. That years to come, maybe 2050, like this what Dr. Arthur C. Clarke said, in 2050 we will reach that era. But anyway, we can see that day by day we are stepping into that era. That's, you can't stop it. Now the question arises, what is the legal impact on AI? Now when you take Computer Crime Act, if any person obtain unauthorized access to any computer or computer network or maybe a robot or that AI device, it's an offense. Basically, it's an offense. Or if anyone change the software of robot AI device, then it's a modification, illegal modification. So it's an offense. But up to a certain extent, we can deal with the existing laws. Even when you take Electronic Transactions Act also, that we can see certain provisions we can apply for it. Even like Online Safety Act as well. But when you take the development of laws in European Union countries and United States, even in South Korea, Japan and Australia, we can see that they have started to introduce some piece of legislation specifically to deal with AI technology. So this is important in future. So otherwise there can be some gray areas, overlapping areas. To avoid this unnecessary conflict, that we have to have a proper piece of legislation. So otherwise, that how to protect another's right? If I take you an example, now under criminal justice mechanism, in Sri Lanka to fix a person under our system, prosecution must establish actus rea, that means physical action plus we call this as mental element, mens rea, together. If you prove only action, it's not sufficient. You have to prove the bad intention, criminal intention or the knowledge of the person to convict that person. Now, when you come to artificial intelligence, you will see that how difficult to prove this mental element. So, take example, if I have AI device, say robot. Now, robot can understand my face impression, my body movements. Then that robot, that my AI device, know how to behave, how to react. If I am hungry, the robot will provide the food. If I am thirsty, the robot will bring me a glass of water like that. So if a person comes to attack me, without giving any command to this device, if this robot or this AI device, we go and attack that person, this cause grievous hurt. Or sometimes if that robot murder, kill that person, who has to take the responsibility? Where is mental element, mens rea? I didn't do anything. So then how to, before criminal justice mechanism, to convict a person, mental element is important. Then if you want, you can convict the robot, machine, not me. So it will become a very complicated issue now. So that is why international jurists tried their best to find a mechanism for it. Finally, they found under the very old law of tort, some principles are there. Now, basic principles is if a master can't control any animal or any instrument, it's a duty of the master to destroy it, or otherwise we have to control it. Now, we have to apply the same theory here now. If the user or a owner or a controller can't control his own device, then it's up to him to take the responsibility. But anyway, when you take mental element also, there are various types of mental element. So that's why we have to reshape this concept. So that's why law is a living subject. When the law has to cater according to the requirement of the society. When the situation of the society is changing, accordingly law also will be adjusted. So this is not a magic, this is the reality. So likewise, when the AI is developing, now the international jurists, they all are struggling to find out the proper mechanism to deal with this AI mechanism.
Yes, and very rightly, as you mentioned as well, the fact that there is a dilemma now relating to how exactly AI should be handled moving forward. And we are seeing the early stages of it in the European sphere as well, with their legislation being altered due to the rapid development of artificial intelligence. I want to get to that specific area, but we do have to take a short commercial break before that. You're watching Law, Land and Liberty here on Other Than the News channel. We'll be right back with the final segment. Stay tuned.
Hello, my name is Ashli Veerapon, a third-year law student in General Sir John University. My question is, in the future, what can we expect in terms of improvements to existing legislation worldwide? Thank you.
Welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty. We're in our final segment in conversation with Dr. Sunil Abeyratne relating to digital laws and artificial intelligence, how exactly this new technology has upended certain legislation and what the world is doing to work around it in the legal field. Thank you very much, Doctor, for the previous two segments. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. This is going to be quite a short segment, but very importantly, as you mentioned previously as well, Doctor, that there are certain implications due to artificial intelligence's rapid development. There have been changes that have been anticipated within different parts of the globe when it comes to the laws surrounding it. Specifically, I want to get some information into the context that Europe is going through at the current moment, the European Union, with the current laws that it had introduced for artificial intelligence that we previously spoke about on one of our discussions as well. But now we're seeing an update into that field. Can you please give us some context of that, sir?
Anuradhi, we can see as far as AI Act and other legal provisions, not only European Union, it is other countries, even in China, we have forgotten that area.
Yes.
We can see that they are dealing with this matter based on a risk-based approach. What they say is risk-based approach to AI regulation. Based on that, they introduce their legal provision. So when you take risk-based approach means they have divided the risk into 3 areas: high risk, medium risk, and low risk. So based on that, they have introduced various provisions to deal with this issue. What is high risk? This one high risk I explained you earlier, because it is very difficult to find out mental element. If there is no mental element, you and I, we are not safe. Even we can't walk on street. So then next is medium level. Now today, I don't know whether you all have seen sometimes, especially the actresses and actors like robots, they are walking on streets. So sometimes various type of offenses can be committed by these devices, and including that some sexual activities also taken place. So this can be a threat to a society. So it can be the medium level of threat. And other threat is low risk. The low risk, of course, that considering the law of D-Leaks, of course, we can deal with this matter. So when you look at especially we'll take the framework, because we can't take all provisions available in the European Union AI Act to Sri Lanka. Our culture is different. Our need for the society is also different. So then when you take some provisions, we can see how they have introduced these provisions to deal with these risks. The risk analysis mechanism is very important. So likewise, we also have to carry that proper research on that, and then we have to introduce that. Now, Anuradhi, in Law Commission, that is one area we are going to develop during this year, digital laws, full set of digital laws to the country. So this is the target of Law Commission as well. So they are, because this is very important, today's country theme is digital economy. To develop a digital economy, that we have to strengthen legal provisions also relevant to digital economy. So then we can see, as I explained you earlier, various layers of risk. Based on that, how this technology developed, one way; another way, how these legal provisions will be developed. Now, when you look at some basic piece of legislation I explained you earlier, you don't need to bring totally new legislation to country. What we can do is we can reshape. We can reshape according to the requirement of AI. So likewise, that we can think about this area, but once again I have to say, delay will cause lots of harm to the country.
Very much on point there when it comes to the delays, but there's also a conversation, Doctor, before we end off this discussion, relating to AI or artificial intelligence being further incorporated into our legal system or even legal systems across the globe in order to assist with the functioning of judicial mechanisms and justice in general. Doctor, do you believe that we'll see a future in which, very recently we'll see a future in which artificial intelligence can take over the role of maybe legal experts, arbitrators or judges? Do you think that's a future we should anticipate?
This already happened in the world. Now, there's a case is pending before US court. Yeah, what happened was the arbitrator, he was in a hurry to go overseas. What he did was using AI tool. The AI tool wrote the arbitral award. Aggrieved party went before courts and said, because I expected the arbitral award from the arbitrator, not from the machine. Now there's a question arise. What is your requirement? What do you expect from the system? Judge or judgment? So very, very difficult to answer. Judge or judgment. So even in this is not only in legal profession or legal system, we take medical profession, the healthcare, agriculture sector, education. AI has already intruded to all these areas. Now when you take legal profession and the law and the involvement of AI, it is very much useful, because the reason is we can use this AI tool as a search engine to find out how this the law has been, particular law has been developed through case study, case law, how these other jurisdictions are look at in the same issue. So likewise, when you prepare some documents, submit to courts, and even submissions, that we can use AI very successfully. But one alarm signal I have to say, because another matter is reported from the United States. What happened was, the lawyer prepared written submission using AI. Finally, judges found that some contents, some materials are wrong. Then he pleaded that he didn't double check, he just relied on this AI. When he's 6 months, he was suspended for 6 months. So likewise, there can be issues. We must not 100% rely on this AI. We can use AI for the betterment of our work. So that AI will be our servant. We cannot be AI servant. So this is the message I have to give. Maybe you may be a legal professional, you may be a medical professional or engineer, whatever it is. It applies to all areas, because you can use this AI for the betterment of your life. So then you can enrich the quality of life.
Very apt, and unfortunately very much suited for us to have to end off on this discussion on. I believe that comment is very important. AI can be a double-edged sword after all. I think maybe in the future, Doctor, we can reconvene relating to this topic as well, because as you mentioned, the Law Commission is also working on new legislature that could help with coping with the current digital situation we have in Sri Lanka as well. Thank you very much for taking the time, Dr. Sunil Abeyratne, attorney at law, for actually helping us understand and breaking down the latest developments when it comes to the digital and technological fields and the legal implications of such across the globe. Thank you very much, Doctor. All right, well, we leave you tonight with the words of Alan Perlis. A year spent in artificial intelligence is enough to make one believe in God. That's all we have for you tonight. You can always rewatch by catching us on our YouTube page, and we value your opinion as always, so please share your thoughts and feedback with us through email at feedback.adncenglish@derana.lk or by WhatsApp at 076 805 7933. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great night.